Plan Works and Protection Committee on Thursday, April 9th. Roll call, please.
Gary Paul.
You got him.
Jay Krieger.
Here.
Kelly Service.
Here.
John Brunette.
Here.
Joanne Euclid.
Okay, we're all present. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, action on the agenda. Any questions, concerns, or additions, or what?
Move
To approve.
First and a second on the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Moving on to actions on the minutes of March 3rd, 2026. Any corrections or additions there?
Move to approve.
Here, first and second on there. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, on to action items. Action item A, consider, discuss, act on regular Class B beer / Class B liquor license for Green Bay 3919 Inc. doing business as Applebee Grill and Bar and IHOP. Store number 88072. Wendy.
Applebee's Grill and Bar and IHOP Store 88072 has changed ownership and is now operating under Green Bay 3919 Inc. They were issued a provisional under this new seller's permit on March 18th. And while this regular Class B beer liquor license is being processed, Public Safety has recommended approval and done all the necessary background checks.
All paperwork is in, corrected, and stamped.
Yes.
Okay, ready to
I'll
vote?
make a motion to recommend the approval of regular Class B beer, Class B liquor license for Green Bay 3919 Inc. DBA Applebee's Grill and Bar and IHOP, store number 88072.
Second.
Got a first and a second on item A. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving on to B. Consider, discuss, act on appointment of an agent for Krist Oil Company doing business as Krist Food Mart. Store number 87 to assign Danielle Cherny of the new agent to oversee the store. And Wendy again?
Yes, we received a change of agent request from Krist Oil Company for Krist Food Mart number 87. The new agent seeking approval is Danielle Cherny. All paperwork and corresponding fees have been filed, and Public Safety has conducted the background and is recommending approval.
Same thing, different company.
Right.
I'll move to approve.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. On to item C, consider, discuss, act on proposed ordinance regulating recycling of the village of Ashwaubenon. Brian, my man.
Alrighty, so in front of you guys tonight, you have a revised recycling ordinance. Our original recycling ordinance was placed in place in 1993. As you can assume, recycling since then has changed quite a bit. Think of the size of your bin, the stuff that you recycle. So with that being said, there's an update in the definitions, what we do accept, what we don't accept. Some cleanup items, you guys may recall, historically we used to actually collect waste motor oil. We no longer collect those things. But it does spell out in this ordinance where you can dispose of those items. Used tires, batteries, appliances. You know, back in the day, you may recall, you used to bundle paper products, and we used to pick them by hand. What it does is this ordinance essentially is just allowing it to better align with how we're actually recycling today. It is required that we do recycle or update our recycling ordinance by April 30th of this year in order to be eligible for our annual recycling grant that we get from the DNR. So we get just shy of $100,000 from the DNR to help offset our recycling that we do here in the village. So with that, I'll open it to any questions.
Are all those items that, you did all the nice work in the ordinance and that, did we push that out to the website?
We haven't pushed it out to the website, but we will push it out
Like,
to the
where
website.
can you, where can you bring recycled oil? Where can you bet? It would be really nice to get a page on the website for that.
Yep, yeah, that's definitely something that we can do. Once we have all of our final approvals through, we'll get it all pushed out just so people are better informed.
Yeah.
The recycling center does also have an app called Better Bin that you can also you can actually scan UPC codes, stuff like that, and it'll actually tell you where to go with the items. So that would be a good thing that we can kind of piggyback based
Push it
off
out
of
there.
what you're
Yep.
saying, Jay, just to
That'd be great.
kind of help people to better recycle items. Just to be sustainable for our future.
It's a good idea, Jay, because I get some calls on that, and
YouTube.
website, we gotta train people to use that thing.
Yep. They
A
just
lot
gotta
of
go out there and look.
information there. Okay, any other questions, concerns? If not, I'll entertain
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the ordinance regulating recycling and forward the ordinance to the village board for adoption.
A second.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried on item C. Item D, consider, discuss, act on proposed ordinance repealing and recreating Chapter 9 criminal offense, Article 1 miscellaneous officers, Section 7 loitering. Joel?
I apologize for the misspelling there. It should be offenses, not offices.
I was gonna say.
Just caught that now after you read that. Appreciate that, Gary. At the request of the Green Bay Transit Director, the following ordinance is being presented for consideration and then ultimate recommendation to the village board. This is in relation to our loitering code under criminal offenses within the village's code of ordinances. The current code reflects older statutory models and includes some subjective standards that are difficult to apply consistently. As noted in the email correspondence that we received from the transit director, there were some concerns about an individual loitering within the bus shelter adjacent to Oneida Street and Anderson Drive. This individual has kind of taken habitation of that bus shelter, that bus canopy at the bus stop, and has created some concerns for sanitation and health and safety in that location. This past month, Transit has contacted Ashwaubenon Police Department to have that person removed for loitering due to some of those health and sanitation concerns within the bus stop. And then upon reviewing our code as it relates to loitering, it was found that there wasn't a really sufficient or sound way to enforce that loitering code based on the circumstances that were found at that bus shelter. Under the current code, there is no defined definition of loitering. In fact, it just states that no person shall loiter or prowl in a place at a time or in a manner not usual for a law-abiding individual under circumstances that warrant alarm for safety of persons or property in the vicinity. Pretty hard to define what that is as far as warranting alarm, safety of persons or property, things of that nature. So the draft ordinance that is before you tonight effectively copies similar ordinances that are found within the City of Green Bay's municipal code, as well as the City of De Pere, because both police agencies in those two communities are able to enforce no loitering in bus shelters for individuals that are not there simply for transit purposes. And so the ultimate code, really what it's intended to do is set a clear definition of what loitering and public place are. It focuses on the conduct that obstructs either pedestrians, vehicles, or transit access for users of that transit system. It does provide a process for officers to order the individuals to move along before enforcement. And that was written in a way for both enforceability, but also to ensure that an individual has an ability to leave and vacate upon order before enforcement or citation is issued. So if simply somebody doesn't want to get a citation, the best thing to do is for them to move on. Specific provisions related to transit stops, being that this particular incident is related to that, and the number of complaints that we've received from transit are related to being very clear as to the language. And then under our current code, we have some language as it relates to trespass laws for school grounds. That language is already included in state statute, and so it was to some degree redundant and not necessary in this case. Again, the goal here is to update and modernize the village's code as it relates to loitering-related issues. Our focus is to target on specific behaviors rather than the individual's mere presence. So again, if an individual is in the bus shelter waiting for the bus, that's not a problem. But if they're taking up habitation or using it as a public restroom facility or something to that effect, then obviously there may become problems, and the individual will be asked to leave that area. It hopefully reduces any ambiguity and aligns better with current enforcement practices within our neighboring communities of Green Bay and De Pere. Again, the goal is to ensure and maintain the village's interest in public safety and accessibility without overreaching and duplicating other laws, whether it be local laws here or within our municipal code or state statutes. The draft ordinance has been reviewed by Public Safety, our village attorney, and is being presented to you tonight for comments, considerations, and ultimately a recommendation to Village Board. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Is this going to be a misdemeanor?
No, this would just be a simple municipal citation if one were to be issued. But again, if an individual is identified to have been loitering, public safety or a law enforcement officer would just simply go approach that individual and indicate that they are loitering and that they are being asked to vacate the area or the premise. And upon moving on, that's all that needs to happen. If the individual refuses to vacate the area, then a municipal citation may be issued at that time.
Upon approaching people, are we going to give them any information where they can go to receive shelter?
I'll let Chief Baxter kind of comment on that, but generally speaking, yes, there are resources that we've been made aware of that we can direct that individual to. I will note that in this particular case, the individual that our transit director was speaking to was given opportunity to get to that shelter, and that individual refused that transportation.
I think we all know that individual because he was sure the talk of the town some places. So, Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't. I just want to, I mean, Joel covered most of it. I just wanted, I think that the interesting part about this ordinance that it focuses on not obstructing or interfering with the free and uninterrupted use of the property. So we want public places to be used by all public. And I know we were kind of focusing on a specific situation or person for most of this discussion. But it basically allows us to go there, provide education to that person before we move on to anything like a citation or arrest for this ordinance. But I think the problem that we're having right now is that we're having people that are taking up residence in some areas and they are restricting the use of that property or that public space by everybody else, and this just helps us have that discussion.
Okay. Okay, everybody understand? Okay. If so, I'd obtain a motion.
I'll make the motion to recommend and forward to the village board the draft ordinance as presented or amended, as presented, to repeal and recreate Chapter 9 criminal offenses, Article 1, miscellaneous offenses, Section 4, loitering, Section 7, loitering.
Second.
First and a
Two
second, all
spots
in
with
favor.
offenses.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we all understand that one. Okay, items for next agenda, contact staff and get with them. Item 8 is adjourned.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
First and a second adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much for being here tonight.